Hello, hello. It is Sunday, August 17th, 8:35 a.m. Central Time. And so just doing my weekend review going into next week. Um, and so I've been using this order flow tool for options just to see if I can kind of cross check and get sentiment on the NQ. I'm also using it for some option swing trading as well. And so currently I'm using this dark pools level, looking at the Qs and then just trying to kind of cross reference that with the NQ. And so there's some interesting data that I just found recently. And so I'm looking at last week. And when you look at last week, it looks like these price levels, this 580.67, this 580.41. So we'll just call it 580.5. And then this 572.58. Most of the dark pool transactions were kind of hitting here. Um, and I don't know if this just kind of shows the charts. But so over the last week, like here's kind of the price levels where dark pool transactions have happened. And so dark pools are basically just shares that happened off the exchange, you know, and usually it's just big money that's moving behind the scenes. And so it's not shown, I guess, live for retail traders. And so I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then I was trying to see like when did those levels start showing up. So let's look on Friday, and you see Friday, 580, 580, like 80% of the big prints and dark pool were at this 580 level. I was like, that's a lot. And so you can kind of see here at this 580 level, there was 19 prints, um, really big size for 2.1 billion. So that's a lot. And so the thing with these dark pools is you don't know which direction they're trading. You just know that the shares are traded at that level. So, there's 19 prints at this 580.67 level for 2.1 billion. Another one for, half a billion, 100 million here. So 580 was pretty big level. 577 was small, but on Friday, like it was mostly in this 580 range. There was a lot of prints. Again, we don't know which direction, right? But a lot of transactions there. Super interesting. And so I said, okay, what happened on Thursday? Thursday, 580 shows up again. Um, we had, like half a billion, like a million shares. 580 again, like millions. 580 again, hundreds of millions. So again, 580 seems to be a pretty interesting level. 579, we'll call that one 580, 58 billion. So that was on Thursday. Interesting, a lot of transactions there. We'll look on Wednesday. 580 again, 580 41, so 1.2 billion. So I don't, it feels like there's either maybe somebody is accumulating there, which is interesting. Um, 580 again, 300 million. So there's a lot of trading, dark pool trading at this 580 level. Say, okay, so let's look on Tuesday. So half the trading was at 580 again, 580, 300 million. Um, and in the beginning of the week, it was 672, right? There was like 400 million at the 672 level, which is interesting. Yes, this or not 6572. So like half of the trading was at 572. And we'll just try to see on the 12th like what price was trading at actually, um, on Tuesday. So let's look at the Qs actually really quick. So 572 is around here at the low of this candle, and I marked it here as well. So on Tuesday, a lot of people transaction dark pools on this, and then we go up, which is interesting. Just like we go up from that level on Tuesday, and then on Monday. Um, so on Monday, 572. Okay, so the majority of dark pools happened on 572. 572, you had almost $1 billion, probably $1 billion if you sum it all up. And so on Monday, there was transactions at 572, right? And this is Monday. Yeah, 572. around here, let's say 572.50. So Monday, like let's say $1 billion flowed in, dark pools on this level. Tuesday, there was more, and we've just pushed up crazy. So that's interesting for me. And in Wednesday and Thursday, this 585 level, you get like billions of dollars poured into it, and now we're kind of rolling over. So it's kind of interesting, right? And so I'm kind of looking at that. I marked these two levels on the Qs, or not on the well, on the NQ using a indicator that basically converts the price from QQQ to NQ. And so I have those two levels marked out on the NQ here. I think the more important one is definitely going to be this one, since this is very recent and we had 3 billion on Friday transaction did here. And down we go. So like I guess with the dark pools, we don't know which direction these trades were placed. We just know that there was transactions at that level. But I mean, on Friday there was 2.1 billion traded at this 58.60, and if you just sum all this up, it's probably like upwards of 3 billion plus. So it's a lot, and that's just on Friday. So and we went down right away. So let's just see what happens. But that's an interesting level. I marked it in slightly different colors just to so it shows up on the charts there. So I thought that was interesting. And then I like to look at the actual historical options flow for the Qs. But since I only day trade the NQ, I want to look at the type of options where they expire in the same day, basically. And so we'll do the 0 day expiry time. And so we're looking at the Qs, and for people who bought options um, that expire in the same day. And so you look at when we search for Friday, when you bought an option that expired also in the same day, 55% bought puts. And so there was more kind of bearish flow on Friday from a day trading kind of perspective. And then you look at Thursday, again, bearish. Looks like 48% put flow, a little bit more in the dollar amounts, right? And so it's a little bit bearish there on Thursday from a day trading perspective. And then on Wednesday, bearish, so it's good. So, like people were really betting for us to go down, a lot more money transaction there. Tuesday, it was more bullish. Interesting, right? Which we see the same thing in the dark pools. Like you see the dark pools transacted on the Tuesday, and it kind of goes up on the Tuesday, expiring in the same day. And then Monday it was more bullish, and Monday had that dip, and then it ripped on Tuesday. So there's something there. And so it's interesting that on Friday, from a day trading perspective, everybody kind of turned bearish. And so that I'm going to kind of take that into account going into next week. But super interesting. I think just the fact that the dark pool levels, and we had such a big one on Friday, just such big billions of, no, that's a SPY. But I'm sure we have the similar kind of thing happening in SPY, but 2.1 billion on the Qs um, transacted there. And they've been kind of hitting this since Wednesday. So somebody's accumulating. Not sure if they're accumulating for a push higher or if they're trying to bet on where we are as kind of a near-term top for a retracement. Not sure, but definitely looking out for that. And then you kind of see how the flow. So I guess the volume of um, orders that came in for options. If we look on, for some reason, like more orders are coming in for the Qs on Friday, which is interesting. And then you look on Thursday, it was it went went to bearish. But again, this flow, like it doesn't tell you the time frame or the expiration date on the options, right? And so that's why in when I looked on the historical, I was only looking at the 0 day to expiration, because from a day trading perspective, I really wanted to see what people thought on the day where price was going to go. Um, but longer term, if you want to look at maybe longer term for the week, people are more bullish on the Qs, but we don't know the time frame versus the SPY. So take that with a grain of salt. But I think for me, the most interesting thing is the dark pool levels and the fact that when I looked at the 0 day expiration, that for Friday at least, we've ended pretty bearish, actually, for the kind of back half of the week. So, anyways, I thought that was super interesting. And so I'm definitely watching this level come next week, this 2390, which coincides with the 58 50 level on the NQs. So that's super interesting. Not sure if you can see that, so I'll zoom in a bit more. Yeah, so you can kind of see here at this level, this 585 coincides with this 23926. That's where that 3.1 billion plus was transacted on Friday, and there was some on Thursday as well. Even on Wednesday, like they started piling in here, and now we see this. And so I don't know how long. Maybe they're out already. Like they could be out. Maybe they're coming back down to here. Maybe this is a precursor to a bigger move, retracement down, or they're actually buying and they're expecting it to go up. Not really sure, but I think it's very interesting levels to watch. So we'll just kind of keep an eye on that. And so I guess outside of that, let's do the kind of tops down and just do our levels just to see from a price structure standpoint how things look. And so looking on the monthly, again, still super bullish. There's nothing to argue with here. I mean, everything looks like it's going up. So I'm going to put this level here again. So I like to clear the levels and redraw them every week, just because it kind of keeps me, just in theory, it keeps me on point with just making sure that I do that and making sure I'm paying attention and all that. So we'll sync this globally. We'll lock it. So that's from a price structure standpoint on the monthly, super important level for me. I think this, you know, this is an interesting level for me. Kind of where those, where that happened. Sync that globally. We'll lock that. Also here seems like a good structure. I think since it's the monthly, I don't anticipating us getting this far down for the week, but you never know. So I think we'll watch that. And then maybe here as well. Yeah, I like this also just from a kind of structural, like the highs and lows and how those kind of line up ish. So I'll be watching that area for if I was a longer term, kind of bigger trader, I guess. I would be paying attention here. Sync that globally. All right, so that's what things look like on the monthly. Let's check out the weekly. Yeah, look at that. What is this? Closing on the highs. Super strong, right? Um, and closing on the highs that week. This week, kind of just coiling and seeing which direction that we go. So yeah, I think. Hmm. I mean, I'm trying not to get too psyched out about this like big transaction level, because if you look at this, like it is bullish, right? Like with Pierce all-time highs, close green on the week, even though it's kind of a doji looking candle, but maybe we push higher, and that's what they're kind of betting on. Um, people made some bets here and it pushed up higher, and so maybe they said, okay, let's go all in on that, and they're willing to kind of hold into the red and then kind of push back up. We also don't know what their time frame is, right? And so it's just interesting. So we'll just see how price reacts there if we get faked out or whatever. And I think from a day trading perspective, I think there's a lot of volatility that could happen at that level. So should be open to both sides anyways. But longer term, I am curious, is this a bet towards the upside, or like are we kind of accumulating and pricing in like, hey, this might be a near term top? So that's the one thing I'm going to be keeping in mind. I think from a structural standpoint, I think all the levels that I care about are here. I mean, probably another one if I wanted to kind of just pay attention. I do think this is an interesting level as well, just to kind of keep that on the charts. Lock that as well. But yeah, I think everything else is pretty much marked there. Um, this could be a level too, actually. Just where the highs. I like to just mark where highs and lows meet on higher time frames, and then just see what that looks like. Because price does react, and people do see these same things. So I like to like what's obvious, right? And like those are obvious kind of structural levels. And so we'll see what that looks like. All right, so that's a weekly. We'll look in the daily here. In the daily, I mean, it's kind of hitting that, which is fine. I think here also could be interesting. So going to watch this level. I like this right here. Sync that globally and lock it. Yeah, so I think these are like the longer term levels that I'll be watching on when I do my trading on the 1 minute. Again, price is up, but this whole price is up. I think this was obvious buy, if you're big money. And, I guess the fact that green closed on the highs and then we pulled back, probably pre-market we pulled back. Big money is like, yeah, we're going to buy into that. And they did. And then poof, we go back up. And so just kind of watching here with this big money on the dark pools, I'm really wondering if we're going to continue lower, retest this, break down, maybe get faked out, go back up. But it's a higher, this was a higher high, now a higher low, now a higher low, lower low, lower low. So, price is up on the daily, but we are kind of breaking down here. But this, again, could just be a pullback into this area. And so I'll be maybe watching to see if there's any more dark pull prints around here, and it may be they're averaging in to go back up. If no big buyers come in here, and this one, like we know this happened on Friday, Wednesday to Friday, they were accumulating here. Maybe we should join short down here to a nice little pullback, and then we'll see what happens if we sweep this low. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for the week. We'll just see what kind of comes out there. Um, and this is how things kind of play out on the 1 minute. So that dark pool, the 3.1 billion plus is right here, and then that other billions was down here. Here was that kind of volume, like high volume area that we talked about last week. Got to it, which is interesting. So I guess I'll take this one off because that's probably changed by now. So yeah, I mean that's kind of what I'm looking at for now. Let me see this thing if this is the 1 hour. Yeah, that's the 1 hour. Yeah, so I mean we'll have to see how things look pre-market on Monday tomorrow. But I'm really just seeing how price reacts here. If we can get back up there, and if we can't even like make an attempt and push up, maybe there's more downside back to these levels. But we'll see. Like right now I'm definitely more short bias, even though like the daily is super strong up. On the hourly, sure, it looks like we may be rolling over a little bit. So in the near term, there could be some downside from scalping perspective, but longer term, I mean, we're going up. Even on the weekly and the monthly, we're going up. So just have to see what things look like. And then I guess if I want to look at what's coming next week, August 18th to 24. Yeah, I don't want to make the same mistake like I did last time. So Monday we got some housing index stuff at 9 a.m. So I'll keep an eye on that. Building permits, some Fed speakers. Wednesday we got some 30-year mortgage rate reporting, crude oil stuff, which is fine, and then Fed later, which is fine. Thursday got the jobless claim, so that'll be interesting with some Fed speakers. PMI flash as well, and home sales at 9, so I don't want to get caught in that. And then Friday, more speakers and stuff. So definitely going to keep an eye out for, was it jobless claims, I think, are a big one on Thursday. Maybe the mortgage rate thing, building permits, but that's earlier in the day, so that's fine. Yeah, so nothing Crude oil, not too much to worry about there. Yeah, so I think the biggest thing, well, jobless claim, that's pre-market. So I think the biggest thing would be this PMI flash on Thursday, like right after the regular trading hours open. So I have to keep that in mind. And then some speakers on Friday at 9. So yeah, we will, well, Powell speaks. So yeah, we'll see what Friday brings. Cool. Well, that's pretty much it. Hopefully that helps. And yeah, good luck out there this week. And I'll be back for my pre-market review on Monday. It might be a short one. Maybe I'll just do a screenshot, just because we've kind of looked at things already. And yeah, that's it. Good luck. Talk to y'all soon.